welcome to our final edition here, Steeler Nation Live 2013. Big O, it's been a heck of a season. I'm glad you were here. Glad you're my partner. Yep. This 2013 season has been huge, and you guys, you know what? There were a lot of things that went on with the Steelers, and we're going to talk briefly about it. And we're going to give you actually, guys, a game-by-game synopsis of what happened during the season. And there's going to be a lot of other things that's going to be going on in this show. So this is the final show for 2013. We'll talk about a lot of things, and we'll get it out. We'll get it off our chest. You know, we even dab it a little bit, even on the AFC NFC Pro Bowl.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Big, heated topic. Big, heated discussion before we started filming today. Obviously, me and Big Tiz have total different feelings of the Pro Bowl and what's going on this year. They're going to try something new with Sidney Rice and Deion Sanders. Right. We'll talk about that later in the show. Stay tuned. You're going to love this. And Big Tiz promises not to slap me around. So, but getting back to the regular season, things did not start off well, even in preseason. And we all know that preseason, what it is. You know, you're feeling out there. You have hopes and aspirations of what will work, what won't work. So that's what you do preseason. You try to get yourself established, and the record really doesn't depict how you're gonna do in the season.
Right.
However, we carried the preseason into the regular season, and actually we started out 0-8 as opposed to 0-4 if you want to throw in those preseason games. But we turned it around at some point. Just when we thought we had it, we lost it again. And
it was kind of unusual to see where you see Pittsburgh was in that frame right there where everybody was trying to find themselves in the beginning of the season. Of course, preseason, you got new players coming in. You got players that are older or players that are gone now for the Steelers, and everybody's trying to gel in that offseason. And it was a disastrous offseason. They went 0-4 in the offseason. And like Big O said, they continued it right to the regular season where we started out 0-4. And it was something amazing to see, and we're just going to talk quickly about it, but we're going to go game by game. But even just for Steelers being the first team to score the fastest points in NFL history, they did that.
They did
that. They went up 2-0 on the Tennessee Titans. So at this point, I'm looking at the game thinking, okay, you know what? The Steelers, this is going to be a heck of a season for the Steelers to start off like this after going 0-4, and these guys are going to go on and win this game and do great things. Lost.
Yeah, but getting back to also, we had several key injuries. You know, we don't like to, talk about this is an excuse, whatever. It's not really an excuse. It's how you say, facts. And when you have your star players not playing and they're hurt, Pouncey, another one. I mean, beginning of the year, your main man goes down. I like to call him the captain, even though Ben is the captain. But this guy, this is the main focus of the offensive line right here. This guy does it all. He goes down. Our draft pick, number 1 draft pick, Le'Veon, not number 1 draft pick, number 4 draft pick, Le'Veon Bell, who's supposed to be our prolific running back. Dreams and hopes for this young kid, because what he did in Michigan State, that fell through, right. And it just seemed to have a domino effect.
All right, then we also had Larry Foote, who actually went out this season, injured in this season, and that caused a lot of disruption. Not that he was this high caliber player, but he was an experienced player,
a mentor,
right? And so this guy could help out in that linebacking secondary with coverage and filling in gaps. I didn't say he was a prolific run stopper, but he was good.
Yeah, he knew how to get in the backfield. But getting back, as you said before earlier, you touched base. So we're going to go through pretty much each game of the season, talk briefly about it, just the meat and potatoes of each game. And you hit the note on the Tennessee Titan game. Our first home game loss to the Titans, 16-9 loss.
Right.
And the offense really never had a chance to get going. And you would think the special team scoring so quickly and taking a lead that we would take advantage of that, and obviously we did not.
Right.
So even the stats show that Roethlisberger didn't have a good day. He's 21-33 for 191 yards and 1 TD, mm-hmm. And now comes the interceptions. He only had 1, but this was the start of Big Ben's, I wouldn't say collapse, but usually a quarterback of his caliber usually starts high, and you kind of make a couple mistakes, but we'll go each game by game and we'll figure it out. We only had 194 total yards the whole game, Big Tiz.
Well, and that goes along with the problems that we had with the line blocking, everything in the off season, now progressing into the regular season, and you have these situations where the blocking is so horrific, where the top running backs were probably averaging like 23 or 30 yards a game. Right. And that's how bad it was getting to a point. And it started off right with the first game of the season where we couldn't run the ball or anything like that. So we were always trying to pass the ball. But, right then and there, our line blocking wasn't correct. And Ben was still trying to, transition into that effect with the Haley, Haley type run offense.
Right. And combined running backs, we only had 31 yards rushing. Now, remember a guy named Stevens, Laroud Howlings, who's supposed to be, we got him really good, real cheap.
From the Arizona Cardinals.
And kick returner, punt returner, the elusive back out of the backfield, power running back as well. He ends up getting hurt, and we don't hear from him for a long time. Now we have Jonathan Dwyer, and we have Felix Jones.
Right.
So even all those running backs combined, you still have to muster more than 31 yards combined.
Well, I believe Redmond even carried the ball a couple times in this game. I believe he even had a fumble close to the goal line, and this was like starting to be the demise of Redmond, wearing a black and gold. I mean, because the turnovers began to become too much during the regular season, even leaving off from last season. So now we're in a hole 0-5 if you're adding the preseason. So we'll just leave the preseason out because that sounds really horrible. So we'll go to the second game against the Bengals. Right. Yep.
In Cincy. Little closer, 20-10 loss. So now we're 0-2. And now you see a little progression. I know it's only one game, but we always talked about, you start off at the level of playing, you could always go down. Even if it's horrible, even when you start the first game is horrible, you could always go down. But this is where Steelers gradually started to improve. We had Roethlisberger. He threw for 251 yards,
right.
1 TD, also another interception. Our rushing game, 44 yards.
Hey,
but it's getting up.
Right.
It's horrible. Don't. I'm not saying that's great because it did a little bit more than 30 yards, but you can see where it's starting to go up. Even combined with all the running backs, once again two turnovers during that game as well. So now in 2 games we have 4 turnovers, and we're 0-2.
Well, actually, and then again as well, we had our issues on the defensive side of the ball. We gave up like 407 yards of offense in that game number 2, and from the Bengals, and that's when the Steelers secondary was still in somewhat of a disarray as well. We had Polamalu seemed like he was trying to cover.
He was doing too much.
Too much. They try to cover the whole field, and you can't do that. You got to trust some of these young guys, and that was a game that I guess he was still trying to do the coverage, not trusting these young guys yet. But he learned to do that as the season progressed.
And also, so the first 2 games we're 0-2. We've caused 4 turnovers, and our opposing teams have no turnovers. So right now we're not getting our offense going. We're starting to do the silly, stupid penalties, and we're not creating turnovers. And when you're not creating turnovers, you're not winning ball games.
Exactly.
So right off the bat, you could see why we're 0-2. Now, game 3 against the Bears. That was you would think was a breakout game for Ben Roethlisberger. Now you look at these stats, Big Tiz. 459 yards passing, okay, and he had, I believe, 3 touchdowns? No, 2 touchdowns.
Right.
Once again, 1 interception. And Antonio Brown had a stellar game. 9 catches, 196 yards, and 2 TDs. Now you hear those stats, folks, and you're looking. You had to win this game.
Right.
Wasn't the case, and we all know what happened. The Bears ended up winning 40-23 because the defense collapsed in the second half.
Right. And as certain parts in the season, you'll see as the defense still had those issues where they're going through the season, guys still trying to find themselves, trying to learn those positions. You got these younger guys trying to gel, and that's the things that were happening right there, especially in the secondary side of the ball for the Steelers.
Now, we almost doubled our rushing yards from the previous game, 80 yards rushing, and folks, 5 turnovers.
Yeah.
5 turnovers. Now, we all know that you have 2 turnovers. We showed in the first 2 games. 2 turnovers, you're going to lose. 5 turnovers. Even though the score is 40-23, this score doesn't depict the game. It wasn't as close as the score would show in the total yards on offense.
Right.
It was a disgrace. It was a total blowout. And this is where you start questioning yourself as a team. What are we going to do? We're 0-3. We just got blown out at home against the Bears. Not saying the Bears are a bad team. The Bears are a great team.
Oh yeah, they have a
tough
very nice
division.
offense.
They have a tough division, just like the Steelers do. They got to play the Packers. They got to play the Vikings, who are really tough at home in the dome. And so they have to fight and scratch and claw just like the Steelers do. We have bad, horrible teams in our division because of the records, but it doesn't mean they're bad teams.
Right, exactly.
When you play the division. So when you throw those stats in there, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's a loss. And speaking of the Vikings, now we carry an 0-3 record into London, travel across the pond to play the Minnesota Vikings, and they were a home team, but it was Wembley Stadium, which is an outdoor stadium. So we should have had some type of, up on them, if you want to call it that. Right. It was bad weather. It was raining, and once again, horrible conditions for a running team like Adrian Peterson. Now, Adrian Peterson had a stellar game. Well, let me correct myself. He really didn't have he had stellar statistics. He had he had 23 carries for 140 yards and a couple TDs, but he did have that one long run that kind of bumped up his rushing stats.
Right, and as you can see, and in that game, it just seemed again where the guys in the secondary or even the linebackers missing tackles. That was a big issue within those 3 to 4 losses. Missed tackles, guys wide open in the secondary, and that's exactly what happened on this. There were a lot of Viking wide receivers wide open in the secondary.
Jerome Simpson, 7 catches, 124 yards, but no TDs. I mean, those are big splash plays, and it just shows you what direction the Steelers are going now. Now we're 0-4. We're going to week 5 with a bye. This was huge for the Pittsburgh Steelers, the bye week, because with all the injuries that the Steelers had, and now you're at that plateau. You're statistically doing better. You're improving offensively, but not to the capabilities of creating a win.
Well, the funny thing was as well is that a lot of fans, at this point, were really like, they're already talking about next season.
Talking about a draft.
Well, you know what? Yeah, we're not going to do anything. Let's start looking at draft choices. Blah blah blah. This team's done, and this and that or whatever. So we come out, like Big O said, after that loss and taking that break, we come out and we play the New York Jets in New York.
Now, you remember when if you go back to when we airing this show, and not this show, but the Viking show, when we pre-gamed this,
right?
That I said that this is the game that we need to win.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you need to win every game, but this game is going to set the tone for the season,
right?
And because, like we discussed, the Jets really weren't that bad of a team,
right?
But historically, they have been, and we talked about that in pregame, and that the Steelers always had a leg up on the Jets. But this is now. That's not the past.
Right.
Different teams, different coaches, different quarterbacks. Sanchez wasn't playing, so that and Geno Smith was doing very well at this point. I believe the Jets were game over 500. I think they were tied for first in their division, and they're playing at home. So you're taking a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are deflated, who have injury problems, can't get anything going on offense.
Just came from overseas playing another bad game.
Can't get anything going on defense. So this was a very pivotal game for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we did come out victorious away 19-6. 328 total yards, and we had the ball for almost pretty much the whole game, 35, almost 36 minutes, which really helps. If you keep their offense off the field and you keep your offense on the field, it's hard for them to score, and then you end up, pretty much winning the game.
Right. And the Steelers had 73 yards rushing in that game, which was, you see that gradual progression as the line starts to learn their blocks. And you got to think about it. We had injuries all along the way in the line. They were shuffling guys so many times they got to the point of where it just looked ridiculous. But they had a decent game there, 73 yards rushing, and Ben, 279 yards passing. So Roethlisberger, he had a decent day, 23 of 30 for that amount. and that one touchdown, and that was pass to Sanders, I believe.
Yeah, and the key issue to this, two key issues. Number one, we did not turn the ball over.
Correct.
And number two, we created 2 turnovers. I believe it was a fumble and an interception.
Exactly.
So if you look at the stats, folks, and you can see where we're going with this, that when you don't turn the ball over and you create turnovers, you typically would win a game, especially if you retain possession of the football for most of the game.
Right.
So we're not going to brush the Jets off like they were no team, but when push comes to shove, I think this is the game that the Steelers said, hey, look, we need this.
Exactly.
Irregardless, this is our playoffs, this is our Super Bowl. We have to create a win. We have to do something. And then after that, we go back home to play the Ravens at home, and we end up beating them 19-16 on the last-second field goal, I believe.
Right, exactly. And it was beautiful to see that, with the hated Ravens coming into Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh pulling off. Well, I guess at this point you call it an upset.
Yes.
Yeah, we're 1-4 at that point, and the Ravens come in and Pittsburgh beat them, bringing their record up to 2-4. And the Steelers had a great game that day, like you said. 19-16 was a win. Total yards for the Steelers was 286 to 287 for the Ravens. But you know what? The Steelers had 1 turnover, but they played a sound, good game on both sides of the ball. And that's what we talked about all season long, was the fact that they needed to put a cohesive game together for the offense and the defense.
Right. And Flacco was Flacco. He had his Flacco day. 215 yards passing. He was 24 for 34. He had 1 TD, no interceptions. And we talked about that. I mean, he's in a perfect situation right now with the receiving core that he has. All this man has to do is throw the ball up.
Right.
That's pretty much it. When you have receivers that average 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", going against corners that are like 6 foot, 6'1", it's just a jump ball. It's all like basketball. So then you have the propensity of scoring these big splash plays.
Right.
You're not going to get the, like the Terry Bradshaw, Lynn Swan, or John Stallworth, where you air the ball up and he falls underneath it and then he runs for a touchdown.
Right.
This is just, give me some yards, get a first down, and that's what Flacco's all about. So statistically, it's pretty much evenly matched. I mean, the Ravens had 287 yards. We had 286. Penalties, same thing. Seven penalties, 50 yards for the Steelers, and 9 for 67 for the Ravens. So that's how that goes from there. And getting over to Game 8, here's where we start to fall now. Now these are the games that upset me the most. The games that you should win. And this is where we traveled all the way to Los Angeles, California, where the palm trees sway, to visit the Oakland Raiders, and we lose this game, 21-18.
Yeah, and that was a game that the Steelers should have won. The Steelers played. They put themselves in positions to try to win the game, but they never pulled it through, and that was some of the issues that they were having. And the Steelers gave up a ridiculous play at the beginning of the game prior with a 93-yard touchdown run from a quarterback.
Untouched.
Yeah, which set an NFL record, I believe.
Sure did. That's one of the records you don't want to be on the side of the bad stuff. You
exactly.
want to be on the good side of the record. But now that was the game. Now where special teams started to fall apart.
Exactly.
Now field goals. We always talk about field goals, and we all know how Mike Tomlin is. When you get in the red zone, you got to put up points, and you'd rather put up touchdowns than field goals. But when you have no other recourse, you got to kick field goals. Now, when you miss 4 field goals, that's 12 points.
Right.
That's 12. Now, these are makeable field goals, folks.
Yeah.
We're not talking like, all right, get out there, Sean, and kick a 63-yard field goal in the wind, pouring rain, snow, whatnot. These are 30-yard field goals.
Yeah, and that was one of the problems that I've never seen Swisham go through a level to where he went through in this game, to where he was missing easy kicks, where he almost got down to the point where the Steelers were going to continually try to start going for it on 4th down.
Right. Yeah, and when you lose a game by 3 points, and you miss all those field goals, it kind of like it's a long plane ride home for your special teams.
Exactly.
Roethlisberger didn't help his cause any much either, with throwing 2 interceptions and only having 1 touchdown. And granted, threw for 275 yards, but
yeah, it was just the fact that, like I said, and in that game as well, The old line still wasn't gelling as well. 35 yards rushing. I mean, where are you going with that?
We're talking sunny California. We're not talking, like 3 feet of snow where you can't get. And the Raiders did have 3 turnovers that game. The defense was doing their job to a point.
Exactly.
But when the offense can't score off of turnovers and you're missing field goals, you're not going to win. So,
well, at this point right now, the Steelers are 2-5. 2-5, and things are looking pretty dismal because the Steelers now have to travel to
New England.
Exactly.
Now, we talked about this, and I don't like to say I jinxed the Pittsburgh Steelers, but if you rewind to the show, and we talked about this, the pregame, the Patriots, and the Patriots were winning, but they were barely winning.
Right.
And they were finding ways to win because we talked about great teams and great teams that are football teams that play great. And this is a great team because to be a great team, you find ways to win.
Exactly.
And regardless of how great you're supposed to be, great teams find ways to win, and other teams play football great. Just because you play football great doesn't mean you're going to win.
Exactly.
And we talked about the Patriots are going to have a breakout game. And we hope that it wasn't against Pittsburgh because the way Pittsburgh was playing and the way the Patriots were playing, this was the game for Tom Brady to just come out and just unleash the wrath on us, in which he did.
Exactly. I mean, in this game, the Patriots had 610 yards of offense. That was incredible. And I mean, they got to the point to where the Steelers, they made a comeback, which it was a valiant comeback. I believe it was 24 to, I can't remember. It might have been 24 to 10 or 24
to 3, I think
yeah,
it was.
something like that. To that effect, Steelers fought back, got back in the game, only to, like they did before, not playing a whole consistent 60 minutes of football, to give it up on the back end, another 2 or 3 touchdowns, and there you have it. Brady throwing long bombs to wide open receivers. It just got ridiculous to a certain point. And
so that's what bumped up the yardage when you're throwing the receivers 80 yards. I mean, and it just adds to it.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean you did good things. It just means that our defense was doing bad things or not doing anything at all. And Steelers, once again, 3 turnovers. Even though Roethlisberger did have 4 touchdowns, he did contribute with 2 interceptions. However, he had 400 yards passing. But that's expected, because if you're down by 30 points, you're going to have to throw the ball.
Right. You're playing catch up, really.
You're playing catch up, and that's another thing that we also discussed during the season, Big Tiz, about starting off strong and not having to play catch up and being in that position where you want to prevent them from scoring as opposed to trying to score every play to catch up, and that wasn't working either.
Well, at this point, the Steelers are 2-6, I believe, and really, I'm on the level getting ready to start agreeing with other people about, what, next season seems like, well, we got to really buckle down and just try to finish it out.
You got to be realistic.
Yeah.
You got to take those rose-colored glasses off. It's one thing to be all gung-ho for your team, but, statistics don't lie. And once you see a consistency of what the Steelers are doing, or lack thereof consistency on offense and defense, you got to start coming to the realization and the generalization that this might be the season.
Right, exactly.
And now we're going back home after this butt whooping, and now we get to play the Buffalo Bills.
Exactly.
Another team that you can't count out. The team that they have really nothing to lose but all to win.
Right. Those are the dangerous teams.
Absolutely. And
in this game, the Steelers won that game 23-10, and I believe that was a return of the Buffalo Bills with their young quarterback coming back, from being on injury reserve. He comes back and had a rough outing. He threw him in hostile territory in Pittsburgh, and we were actually amped up for that game. After that butt whooping we took against New England, so we had to show something, and they did.
I think it was too soon to bring E.J. Manuel back, especially against a hungry Steeler team who was looking for a victory. And Dick LeBeau against rookie quarterbacks, I don't know, what's his record, 16-1 or whatever. There's so many defenses throughout these young quarterbacks, these young rookies, that you really can't blame E.J. Manuel for doing that bad.
Right.
I mean, granted, 23 for 39, 155 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception. And the Steelers pretty much contained the ball for most of the game. They had it for almost 36 minutes. And not to saying that by keeping Buffalo off the field, there was some, they were going to, do something really good, and because that's the Bills.
Right, exactly.
They're almost like the Cowboys. They're always known for doing something really bad to blow the game, but we never got that close, and we each had one turnover. So still, we got to get out of that turnover, giving stuff away. I mean, we're going to be called the Pittsburgh United Way Steelers. We're just giving things away, and that's one thing. And 136 yards rushing, we had that game.
Right. Yeah, it was a good balance in that game against the Buffalo Bills. I mean, on the passing side of the ball as well as the running side of the ball. And Roethlisberger had about 204 yards passing, 18 for 30. He did have one interception at the beginning of the game, which kind of like, okay, here we go, where he threw he never looked off the safety and just threw it right to the outside, and it got picked. And this was early on in the game, first quarter, when the Steelers were trying to drive, and that's what happened in that one.
It was more like a punt.
Pretty much.
Punting on third down.
I don't know, because he took it back all the way to our side of the field, to our 30, I believe.
Well, that adds up with the special teams not being able to tackle anybody. But then, and that was game 10. But now, game 11, we're at home against the Detroit Lions. Now this, on paper, we talked about this, did not look good.
No.
In all aspects, shape or form, this did not look good. Let's see. Stafford was on his game. We had Megatron was on his game.
Oh, and he still was.
And we had Reggie Bush was on his game. I mean, this was one of the most potent offenses at the time in the whole NFL, playing against one of the weakest defenses of the Steelers' career that I've ever seen. A defense like the Steelers at this point of the game.
Actually, yeah, and actually, I believe it was the game after the Lions had just did the comeback on the Cowboys.
Oh,
late in the game when they won that one against the Cowboys, and now here they come to Pittsburgh, and I'm like, okay, it's gonna be ugly, but I'm black and yellow forever, but it's gonna be ugly.
We're gonna watch it. We have to support the team, and you know what? We broke out early.
Exactly.
And huge, and big in the first quarter, but then the tables turned.
Yeah.
From taking a 21-point lead into the second quarter to being down 27-21.
Yeah, incredible.
Within minutes.
Right. We basically gave up like almost 27 to 28 points in the second quarter.
We walked into halftime losing by a touchdown, and it was unbelievable. Now, seeing what we saw in the first quarter, and then knowing how the Steelers don't play 60 minutes or haven't been playing 60 minutes,
right?
The outlook for the second half did not look good. It looked pretty grim, Big Tiz.
Yeah. Me, myself, I was like, okay, you know what? Here we go again.
Click.
Yeah. Getting that bad game.
What else is on?
But you know what? They stayed true to form. I mean, like the old Steelers, and they showed that they were trying to make that turn. The defense started trying to make big plays, and the offense, they continued to pound the ball, and they stuck with what was working in that game. Roethlisberger, another great day, 29 to 45, 367 yards, 4 touchdowns in this game.
That's right. How many interceptions, Big Tiz?
0.
How many turnovers, Big Tiz?
0.
Now the Lions had how many turnovers?
The Lions had 3 turnovers.
I think they had 3 turnovers. Yeah, and then you time of possession. We had about five more minutes of them. But 5 more minutes when you have a 37-27 game, that's a lot.
Exactly.
That's huge. And what happened was when the defense stood up and the Steelers had to score when they had to score to put the game, I wouldn't necessarily say out of reach, because 10 points is very reachable, right, within a 5-minute span. But then you have clock management, play calling, and the Lions just fell apart in that. And they had a chance. They had many opportunities in the fourth quarter, but the defense stood strong. And I think this was the game of the season. I wouldn't say a turnaround game because we had a couple losses after this.
Right.
But this showed the team and it showed the fans that, hey, we can actually do this and against a good team.
Yeah,
and it's a good team.
And it was a good thing for the Steelers. Like I said, they show that they can be down and still fight and come back in a game. Which, don't get me wrong, they've done it previously in the games earlier in the season when they played Minnesota at London. The Steelers were down, they were fighting to win late in games, but this one was the ones where they they came back and they held on to that lead. They even added to that lead. So that shows that they're trying to get a certain mentality back.
Build some kind of composure.
Exactly.
That, give you a little self-confidence that you could do it. Now, we travel to Cleveland. Now we're starting to go on the road now.
Right.
Okay, we travel to Cleveland. It's Cleveland. Okay. They always play us tough.
Right.
But somehow we always had that extra play that we always seem to play a complete football game against the Browns. We might not score a lot of points, but that's really not the issue. Win is a win. And Tomlin says there's no style points. Okay?
Right.
When you look at that win-loss column, you see a win, you see a loss. It doesn't matter what the score was or how you got to that point. It matters at the end if you won or if you lost.
Exactly.
And a 27-11 score, that's huge.
Well, like I said, the Steelers played well-balanced football on all sides of the ball. We had Le'Veon Bell back in the lineup. Le'Veon Bell was doing great work running the ball for us. The Steelers had total yards, 302 yards. The Browns had 367 yards. And that was due still to a lot of us trying to configure and trying to gain control of what we were going to do in that secondary. Ike Taylor was, covering one of their top receivers, and he was getting Gordon, I believe it was. He was still getting loose.
Yeah.
Picking up big yards, but the Steelers collectively as a defense held the Browns. Granted, the Browns had 367 yards of offense, but a lot of that was late in the game from them trying to play catch up.
Now, you take Gordon out of the equation. Gordon had 14 receptions for 237 yards. That's it right there, folks. Right there in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And another big thing was the turnovers. Cleveland had 4, Pittsburgh had 0. And Cleveland also had to use 2 quarterbacks because we knocked Campbell out and brought in Whedon.
Exactly.
Clean hit, though. It was a clean hit on Campbell. That's all I can say.
Exactly. Now, at this point, after this win, winning this game 27-11 against the Browns, the Steelers are at 5-6. Unbelievably, we're at 5-6, and at the cusp of almost going 500 after starting off 0-4.
And now after this game in Cleveland, we have to travel to Baltimore. Now, this was a huge game.
Exactly.
This was a huge game.
I believe this was Thanksgiving night.
Yeah, make or break the season right here. We beat the Ravens in Baltimore, and we have a shot because at the division title, because the Bengals were not doing that great at this point.
Exactly.
Everybody was losing. The Steelers were winning, and this right here, I think, was our season. Right here, we lose a close game, 22-20, a game we should have won.
Right.
We should win all the game, but this in particular, this was the game. This put the nail in our coffin. This was the game that broke our season, and this what makes me hate them even more.
Well, in this game, the Steelers lost it 20-22, but this was the game with the infamous sideline action of Tomlin, stepping off to the left, supposedly blocking the end zone jaunt of the receiver to go down for a touchdown, which got widespread news and coverage. But the Steelers, they still held and they still almost won this game late.
Yeah.
Le'Veon Bell actually got knocked out in this game trying to go across in the end zone. So his helmet came off during the play crossing the end zone. The refs called stop in action. I don't know how you call stop in midair, but
yeah. And plus the ball was across. This was the touchdown. It took 5 plays.
Exactly.
In a couple minutes. So that way, when we did get the ball back on the final drive, we had no time.
Yes.
So, you call it what you want. Roethlisberger, 28 for 44, 257 yards, 2 TDs, no interceptions. And basically, if you look at the stats on either side of the team, pretty much we're off a yard or 2, a minute or 2 on time for possession. Penalties, once again, Ravens caught flag for 9 times for penalties. And both teams, no turnovers. That's what made the game so close. However, in these games, every play is pivotal.
Right.
Every play. And now what's our record now, Big Tiz? We're what?
At that point, we're like 5-7.
All right. And now we leave Baltimore and we go home to play the Dolphins. Another heartbreaking loss, 28-34 to the Dolphins. I know you're shaking your head, Big Tiz.
Yeah, and that was another game with another infamous play in still a history that I thought was going to be a game turner with Antonio Brown, You know, at the last end of the game where they do the old Stanford play where they throw the ball back and forth, and you know the guy goes in for the touchdown. Antonio Brown almost took it in for the touchdown.
He took it in.
Well, yeah, he actually took it in. If you're still a fan, he took it in.
I don't
so
care.
we think he took it in.
I don't care what you say, what angle you look at.
Yeah, you look at the angles and like Big O's. You know, it's hard to see that how the ref can see that and say that he stepped out when you looked at the angles. Of course, if you're looking at 20 yards off or 10 yards off from way back, it almost looks like he almost touches the sideline. But you've got to get closer than that. And you know that in the NFL.
No. So we end up, I mean, offensively, we weren't that bad. Roethlisberger, you know, 23 for 39, 349 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions.
In a snow-ridden game. That was the weekend where they had the big blizzards in the NFL, and Pittsburgh was playing in a blizzard versus the Dolphins, who, well, you know, their quarterback never played in a snow game.
No. Even in college.
Tannehill, and he did good.
he did very well. And the fact that the defense couldn't contain him, it wasn't like he was throwing the ball, he was running the ball.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many yards rushing he had. He had quite I think he had maybe 80 yards rushing for a quarterback, and that was like 2 or 3 carries. And it was all that read option.
Exactly.
I mean, that's how those boys roll down south, the read option. It's very simple. We talked about this before. The outside linebacker, you take the quarterback. Simple, whether he has the ball or not. So that way you don't have guys like Tannehill running up the middle, faking the pitch to the running back. Now you're out of position. Now the whole infield, the inside, your line is wide open. And because you got guys covering, you got linebackers going out to the outside, leaves the middle open. There's Tannehill down the middle. So,
exactly.
I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that one out.
Well, you know, I mean, it was a bad weather game, and we all knew that the rush game would be a factor. You know, the Dolphins had more yards rushing than us. They had 181 yards rushing. A lot of that was from Tannehill, you know, with the quarterback sneaks and running on the outside. But, you know, Steelers had 84 yards of rushing offense. A lot of that was Le'Veon Bell grinding the ball out, grinding it out, which is going to take time off the clock, especially in bad weather games. Right. And then Roethlisberger, 3 touchdowns. He threw the ball well. But all in all, when it came down to it, the Steelers missed a lot of tackles late in the game that cost us. And that left us at 5-8 right there, right after that one, which was a definite, you know, hard shot to us, you know, even getting anywhere near close to thinking about a playoff game.
But we're still in the playoff hunt, mathematically.
Right. Actually, I think we're almost on the cusp of being tied with the Ravens almost.
Right, because of that loss. If we would have beat them the previous week, they wouldn't have been talking about that. So now we're at home. Playoff hopes are pretty much non-existent. We just lost to the Dolphins, who are pretty much, they're on top of their division, but those were one of the teams that shouldn't be there.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
And now we're going to Green Bay, Wisconsin to play the Packers. Come on. You go Lambeau Field anytime. It doesn't matter. You could be quarterbacking. It doesn't matter. Aaron Rodgers did not suit up for that game, but they had Matt Flynn. Matt Flynn is a consistent, he's one of the best backup quarterbacks who can start, who can be reliable if needed. And you would love to have this guy on your team. Fortunately for the Steelers, he really didn't have that good of a game. Throwing for 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 232 yards. And the Steelers pretty much kept them in check, kept the Packers in check. And we played consistently on both sides of the ball. However, we did have that Roethlisberger interception.
Right.
And the game was pretty close until the field goal. You want to bring us into that, Big Tiz?
Yeah, this was, I believe it was, I'm not sure if it was before half or not, but the thing about it was maybe it was later in the game. I'm not positive, but the fact is that the Green Bay Packers were trying to drive down to kick a field goal, you know, to get closer to the Steelers' lead. And the fact is that they kicked the field goal. Well, they went to kick the field goal. The Steelers blocked it. Blocked the field goal.
Blocked it.
In the snow in Green Bay.
In the snow.
So the ball rattles around. I believe Clark.
Ryan Clark.
Defensive back for the Pittsburgh Steelers picks up the ball. Couldn't go anywhere, so he laterals it off. Well, tries to lateral it off to one of the other Steeler men, defensive men running down the sideline. Nobody could get it. So one of the Steeler guys, Ziggy Hood, I believe, hit it up forward with his hand out of bounds. So that was a penalty.
Granted, it was a penalty.
It was a penalty. It was a correct penalty.
Correct penalty.
But,
however,
unbelievable, unbeknownst to everyone, They gave the ball back to Green Bay because they said the Steelers didn't even have possession of the ball, which everybody's seen in slow motion that there was possession of the ball. But they said, you know what? Hey, we want this game to be a close game. So,
Sure.
so I'll tell you what. Let's give the ball back to the Packers. And they gave it back to the Packers. Instead of scoring a field goal, the Packers went down and scored a touchdown.
Well, they didn't have to go anywhere, Big Tiz, because they put the ball on the 1 yard line.
Exactly.
And with running backs like Starks and
Lacey.
Eddie Lacy, I mean, it's just a walk in the park.
Right.
So that kind of kept the game. I think the Packers did they take the lead at that point? I'm not sure.
No, they tied the game up at that point.
Okay, they tied the game up,
Right.
and
then
there we go.
Yeah, then the Steelers went down. Ben drove them down in the snow, drove them down for another touchdown. The Steelers went up by one more touchdown. They went up 38-31. So I believe, I'm sorry. They went up by another touchdown, and the Packers came back, tied it up. And I believe the Steelers scored another late touchdown in the fourth quarter with about a minute and something left, which a lot of people were kind of questioning, why did the Steelers score so early?
Right.
And me and Big O talked about it during the show, that the Steelers, we both believe that the Steelers scored early was number one because we had no trust in the fact that maybe if we had to end up kicking a field goal, that he would make it or not.
That's true. And like Tomlin says, we talked about it earlier in this show, that you need to get as many points as you can in the red zone. And at this point, at this juncture of the game, you cannot be sure, is the defense going to hold you up? Are you going to knock it through? Are you going to punch it through? So let's take those opportunities as soon as they can. And if we, maybe he was trying to get the ball as close to the goal line as possible, and a hole just opened up, and Bell just took it in.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that could have happened, didn't happen, but we ended up winning that game. And so now we're 7-8 at this point, going to back to Heinz Field.
Right.
Final game to play the Cleveland Browns. Now, up to this point, Pittsburgh had to win all these games, and there's a lot of teams that had to lose. A lot of teams had to lose. Bengals had to lose. Ravens had to lose.
The Dolphins
had to lose. Chargers had to lose. For 2 weeks, over 9 teams had to lose, and Pittsburgh had to win. So it all comes down to 2 games. Pittsburgh at home against Cleveland. Obviously, we lose this game, we're done.
Right.
And then it doesn't matter what the other teams do. So we came home, and we ended up beating the Browns 20-7. And it was a lackluster game, I got to admit.
Right.
But it was a great game because we won. And
Right.
we needed that win.
And the Steelers played that game that we always talked about all season, that game to where they had to play 60 minutes of ball, and they had to play, well-rounded game on both sides of the ball, and they did this in this game. So basically, it was almost like a walk in the park for the Steelers in this game, basically to work on some fundamentals. That's what more or less it seemed to everybody.
Yeah, it wasn't really that big of a game statistically. We only had 111 yards rushing, 179 passing. We did give up the ball twice, and so did the Browns,
Right.
which didn't help them. I mean, it just basically statistically, we had 2 penalties. They had 3 penalties. We had the ball for 30 minutes. They had it for 29 plus whatever. I mean, it's just one of those games. It was a blah game.
Right, pretty much. Because the Steelers were in total control of the game. I believe the Browns, it was 20-0, and the Browns scored a touchdown maybe with 2 minutes left in the game.
But the reason, we talked about this, the reason why I feel that the Browns, they could have been in this game. Opening drive,
Right.
we're only up by 7 points. They're within field goal range on the 20-yard line, and it's 4th and 4, and they go for it.
Right.
Now, I don't understand that, folks. I mean, you're totally out of it. I understand that. But, you at least want to play to win. You want to play spoiler. You want to knock the Steelers out. You beat the Steelers. They're out of the playoffs.
Exactly.
So kick a field goal. It's the first 5 minutes of the first quarter. I mean, granted, you'll be losing 7-3. However, but you're still in the game, and that wasn't the only time. 3 other times that the Browns were in field goal range that they could have kicked field goals, and they tried to go on it. 4th down, they were 0 for 4 on 4th downs. Now you get those field goals.
Right. There you go. That's 12 points. Yeah.
That's a 2019 ball game. Not saying it would be 2019, but now the whole outlook of the game is totally different, and so now you have to play a different style of ball game. However, you're up 20-7, your defense is doing all the work, stopping them, and so that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that was kind of hard. I couldn't understand it myself. I mean, to me, in the NFL, you have to get points when you can get them.
Right.
And I understand some aspects of what he was thinking. Well, you know what? We don't have a chance for the playoffs. We're out of it. So let's play spoiler. Let's try to go all out, and let's try to, even on fourth down, we're going to try to get first downs. But it backfired. I mean, and, you know, that's not the thing you do at another team's home. And if you could get those easy points, get them. Get them. That's 12 points, like you said. And that's a 19-20 game right there. With, you know, you could probably take it late in the fourth quarter. You could have won it.
Possibly.
Right.
But that's pretty much a season and a wrap right there, folks. I think it's time to pay some bills, Big Tiz. What do you say?
All right. Yep. We're going to go to commercial break. When we come back from the commercial break, we're going to talk about some of the teams and how the Steelers' schedule is going to be looking for this 2014 season that's coming up. Next up on Steeler Nation Live.
Uniform Express, located on 1408 Buffalo Road, Rochester, New York, for your police, fire, or EMS supplies. One of Rochester's top and finest suppliers of shirts, pants, shoes, boots, and accessories for your professional uniform needs. Uniform Express also does embroidery and screen print for team uniforms, jerseys, and corporations. Hours are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. You can also go to their website at www.uniformexpress.com or call Brian at 585-529-4245. That's 585-529-4245. And let Brian know you heard his ad on our show, Steeler Nation Live.
From our studios out in Rochester, New York, we head out west to Southern California where the palm trees are swaying as we check out Rudy Rude Dog Reyes as he does his thing out there for Steeler Nation Live. Rudy, what's going on out there in the West Coast for Steeler Nation Live?
Good afternoon, Big Tiz, Big O, Rudy Rude Dog Reyes reporting live from Southern California. Gentlemen, this year has been somewhat of an up and downer. I mean that in many ways, good and the bad. We're 8-8 again, the second season. Let's reflect on what's been going on here. Ben Roethlisberger was not on the same page as Todd Haley and vice versa at the beginning of the year. 0-4 in the preseason turns into 0-4 in the regular season. Not good. Not good at all. Losing games we should have won. Injuries. No excuse, no next man up policy. Ladies and gentlemen, Steeler Nation, we got to do this. We got to get it done right for the following year. So, with that being said, Big Tiz, Big O, my reflection is that we are subpar at this point of the season, obviously at the end, as well as last season. No significant improvement. However, Todd Haley and Ben Roethlisberger seems to be more so on the up than the down the last closing minutes of the regular season. Unfortunately, no postseason play. So with that being said, we currently have a lot to be desired. Ike Taylor, strong safeties have to be talked about. Shamarko Thomas is the understudy for Troy Polamalu. Hope that works out. Ryan Clark is getting way too slow. Woodley needs to have his contract restructured. So Steeler Nation, we need to get this going. We need to get it going fast for the following season. And I've said this before. I'll say it again. I will always say it. Here we go, Pittsburgh. And I have one word for that. You know what that is, Steeler Nation, and that's Pittsburgh. So we need to go, Steeler Nation. Here we go. Big Tiz, Big O, Happy New Year, guys. And Rudy Rude Dog Reyes out.
Welcome back to Steeler Nation Live here in Rochester, New York. I'm Big O.
I'm Big Tiz.
And right now, folks, our final show, we're going to preview the teams that we're going to play in the 2014 season. Now, there's a lot of talk, Big Tiz, about this is one of the softest schedules that any team can have. Now, at home, if you're taking notes, if you're on the radio side and you're listening, you want to jot these teams down that we're playing, and then you can decipher for yourself. And we're basically going to talk about each team that we play. We're not going to go too much in depth because every season point is the Kansas City Chiefs. When you go from 2 and whatever, and then you're in the playoffs next year. I mean, anything could happen to any team. The Houston Texans were fantastic a year or so ago. Now they're the team with the first round draft choice. So we're just gonna say we'll go off with the away teams.
Okay.
We're gonna talk about the away teams, and obviously the dates and times are not there, but just the teams. and we're gonna play the Falcons. I mean, granted, their record really wasn't that good this year, but it's the Atlanta Falcons.
Right, they're still a good team. I mean, they still got the nucleus of Matty Ice and Roddy White and those things like that, and they do still have that nucleus. And I'm not sure if the tight end will be back next year, Gonzalez, but
I think he'll be back.
Yeah,
I think one more year. I think because he was so injury riddled this year, I think he's looking for that one final year. Now, this is the player. Gonzalez is the player that you don't have to worry about. I should go out now on a high note,
right,
because next year, it might not be this good. But Gonzalez is always, no matter what team he played on, was always a consistent, great tight end, the go-to guy, the safety valve, the blanket, whatever you want to call it.
right,
And don't forget, we're playing in a dome.
exactly.
Well, we're outdoor cats.
Well, yeah,
We're not good with this indoor stuff.
Well, a lot of the away games as well. As you know, we play the customary guys in our division twice, so we play them away as well.
Right, we won't
with
talk
the
about
Ravens.
the
Of course, we Ray Rice and Flacco as a quarterback, and the Browns. Who knows what's going on there? Coaching changes as well, and the rest of the squad that we play out of our division, the Bengals. The Bengals, they still have a good nucleus there. Who knows who's going to be quarterback next year? I don't know. Andy Dalton didn't fare well in the last game, but they needed big.
Nah, I'm not even worried about it. Andy Dalton's their quarterback. He's their future quarterback. You have nobody else. I don't even know who their backup is because we took him, Gradkowski.
Exactly.
So I don't even know who's backing up Dalton. But then we got to go down to Carolina to play these Panthers, who made the playoffs.
Yeah.
Who just lost to the 49ers. Now, come on, folks. I mean, if you watch that game, they needed San Francisco to win this game. If you watched the first half and first half alone, you knew that they were going to win this game because of outrageous penalties called and no call penalties. And we've talked about this basically as the season ended. Vocal, I would say,
right,
about the refereeing. And we talked about this before the show that when you look at the schedule, who you're playing. Now you have to look at the schedule. What referee crew is going to be there? what kind of game are you going to expect to? I mean, it's so lopsided.
Yeah.
It's almost, if not worse, than the replacement refs.
Right. Well, you have to look at it in a certain aspect as well. Tomlin even said himself, when you put yourself in that position for the ref to decide it, then that's your fault. And
come on.
Right, they did decide a lot of games, and a lot of games that affected the Steelers heavily, and we'll go into that. But
I'm not talking about like pass interference judgment calls. I'm talking about when you got 60 guys in the huddle, all right, and they show up in the huddle and they're like, oh crap, we shouldn't be here, and then you run off. How can you not see that?
Yeah.
How can you not see that?
The officiating this year has been rough.
And what about the Anquan Boldin with the headbutt right in front of the referee? Headbutts the guy, no penalty.
Yeah.
And the too many guys in the huddle. That was that 5 second left to go in the first half, where San Francisco scored a touchdown. Shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And, stuff like that. But we'll get into that later. And then we got to go to Tennessee again.
Right. Well, Tennessee came to us this year and they beat us. So now we have to go to Tennessee. We'll see how that game goes. It seems like usually we've been like every other year we've been flopping off. Either we've been in Tennessee or they've been coming to Pittsburgh.
But we've been losing. We haven't beat them Titans.
I believe you're right. They beat us the last couple times we played them actually.
And I don't think Jake Locker is going to be back next year. Who's going to be their quarterback? Fitzpatrick? Is he still on the Titans? I'm not sure. And then we go to the Meadowlands.
Right.
New York.
Play the Jets again.
In New York, which I don't understand that one.
Who's going to be? Well, I don't know who's going to really be the quarterback. Geno right now, he did some things. He went out at the end of the season, which gave him some kind of hope. But
he's doing a lot of commercials lately. You see that?
Yeah, I'm trying to make a comeback, I guess.
He's got nice hair still. And then we go down to Jacksonville. We play the Jaguars.
They got a lot of problems. I mean,
well, they started out just like us, but then they ended up kicking ass.
Well, but they're still a rough team, though. I mean, they're still a team that is not there, though.
Yeah, but when you have to get, number one, you have to get your quarterback settled in.
Right.
And then you got to get your running back, Maurice Jones-Drew, who is fantastic. But it seemed to me when he was hurt, when he was out, I mean, it's a one-dimensional team. Once they started running the ball, when he came back, you saw that the quarterback was now getting involved in the game. And so that changed the season around for them. Now, are home games.
Right.
Home games. One of the home games that I'm looking forward to is the Chiefs. I can't wait for them to come to Pittsburgh.
Well, like I said, the Chiefs.
Cannot wait, Big Tiz.
Let's hope that the Steelers have their defensive problems behind them and the injuries behind them. Because right then and there, that's going to be a game that's going to be huge for the Steelers. Because these guys are going to be coming into Pittsburgh fired up. And Jamal Charles is a very, very, very dangerous back.
Oh, and don't forget his backup either.
Yeah.
Davis? Something Davis? I don't know. But, I mean, he's no slouch either.
Exactly.
And then we got Andrew Luck coming to town.
Got another good game.
Now, here's what I don't understand. All right, not to get off the subject. Now, in the past 2 games, this Andrew Luck threw 7 interceptions. Okay? 7 interceptions. Nobody's saying anything about it. Now, if it was Roethlisberger, or we'll say Tony Romo, for that matter, these guys would have been lambasted all over the sports world.
Well, I think the difference is just in the years of play, though. You know, this guy is still a young guy, and, you know, he took them to the playoffs.
Don't matter.
The first couple of years, actually, I believe. This guy, I mean, you got to look at it that way. Look at Cam Newton. Cam Newton's been throwing goose eggs lately, but, you know, and he played it well. He played a good season, probably one of the best seasons he's had in a long time. And these are guys that are still trying to mature, and if Roethlisberger or Tony Romo, who's still making these type of mistakes, then there's a problem. If Romo is still making these type of mistakes, there's an issue.
Oh, he has been, and he will continue.
Exactly.
As long as Jerry Jones owns that team. But we don't want to ruin our show by talking about the Cowboys. So we also got the Texans coming to town.
Right.
And we talked about that earlier. You know, they were a great team a couple years ago. Fired their head coach. 2-14 this year. #1 draft pick. And anything can happen. Look at the Chiefs, like we talked about.
Right.
They could turn it around. That could be a dangerous team coming to Pittsburgh. However, Pittsburgh has always played the Texans well, and I think we were undefeated against the Texans. I'm pretty sure about that. And then Drew Brees comes to town with them Saints. And that's going to be an exciting game. That's going to be an interesting game. Hopefully it's in the wintertime.
Yeah. Well, last time I believe that I remember them coming to Pittsburgh, and it might have been a time before that, was when Reggie Bush was there.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was a high-scoring game. So, like I said, the Steelers, they have to be ready for these type of games. And hopefully this year in the draft, they get some good picks out of the draft. We're going to touch base on that a little bit as well. But
my picks.
Let's hope. And also the Steelers are going to have their other home game is the Buccaneers, who actually showed that they have some type of promise in their future. So there are a lot of games there that's going to be epic for the Steelers this year, and the Steelers have to step up and go all about it.
All right, Big Tiz. So, folks, you got the teams we'll be playing. Hopefully, as soon as we have our draft day show, hopefully we'll have the schedule out. We'll go over that once again. The draft is coming up May 8th, I believe. Be ready, folks. Hopefully, maybe this will be the year me and Big Tiz make it down there and you see us live, ESPN, getting thrown out. Who knows?
Oh, yeah, probably thrown out, but we're there.
We're there. Hopefully. Don't know. So, send all donations to, because it's not a free ride, folks.
Exactly.
But this is the point of the show, Big Tiz, where I like to, you know, we'll break it up a little bit, and this will be our MVPs of the year. Now, we all know the Steelers have chosen Antonio Brown.
Right.
But we also have our own choices. And I'm going to give you my choice. My MVP of the year, Big Tiz, is going to be Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon likes his money. And how can you not? This kid comes out of Michigan State, 6'2", 230 pounds, rookie, drafted 48th overall, second round, just behind Jarvis Jones. Now this is the running back Pittsburgh, you know, needed.
Right.
Now they had a choice between him and Eddie Lacy, but due to Eddie Lacy's toe problem, I know it sounds silly, that turf toe, that ends careers. We talked about that in one of our shows.
Yeah.
It ended many careers, especially Jack Lambert was one of the most that, you know, sticks to my mind. That is a painful injury that does not go away with any kind of treatment other than physical therapy, and you can't rely on that. So I think Pittsburgh did a wise choice of grabbing this kid, Le'Veon Bell, because not only can he run the ball, he can catch the ball. Now, he only played 13 games, Big Tiz, because of injury.
Right.
So that still did not hamper my choice of MVP. Granted, Antonio Brown, stellar year. Roethlisberger had the best career of his best season of his career. Okay, but I picked this kid because of what he meant to the Steeler offense. When he came back, you could see that there was a changing of the guard. Not taking anything away from Dwyer, Felix Jones, or Redmond. Great running backs, had great careers. But this is the kid. This is our diamond in the rough. This kid was going to lead us to the promised land. And I think that if he wasn't injured in the first 3 games, that this would be it. So my pick is Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, and to couple with that, like you said, he had almost 400 yards receiving as well during the season. So Le'Veon Bell is a decent pick for MVP, and I've got to give it to Antonio Brown as well. This guy stepped up in the times that we needed. This guy helped the Steelers break open games as he's done the year before and the years before that. This guy is a phenomenal. This guy was going to actually get traded. The Steelers were trying to see who they wanted more, and they ended up staying with Le'Veon Bell, which was a good thing. So I would have to say, not Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown. And I have to say my pick is Antonio Brown for MVP.
Okay, and quickly before we go to commercial, we'll do the most disappointing player. I believe mine was Lamar Woodley. Only played 11 games. This was our guy. This is our main guy in defense. This was our Jack Lambert. 5 sacks, 1 fumble, 20 tackles. Could have helped us out more.
And for me, I'm going to have to pick Ike Taylor, defensive back for the Steelers. Ike Taylor burned repeatedly, going even back to the game against Denver in the playoffs. He's right now, he's not a number 1 receiver anymore, and he's let the Steelers down on multiple occasions on trying to stop top receivers. So that's my pick for a disappointing player for the Steelers of 2013.
All right, Big Tiz, I think it's time to go pay some more bills. We'll be right back after this message from Steel Nation Live.
Heckle & Jekyll Sports Cards, Collectibles, and Video Games. Open 7 days a week here in Rochester, New York. Mike has all kinds of individual cards and packs. Baseball, football, basketball, hockey, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, just to name a few. Mike also has the widest variety of video games too, from Sega Genesis to Wii to PlayStation to Nintendo, Game Boy Color Advance, and so on. Mike has all the old school games you can't rent or buy anymore. Mike also has a great selection of autographed memorabilia, sports jerseys, hats, 8x10s signed by your professional athletes for you to buy. He also has video game, Yu-Gi-Oh, and poker tournaments, Beanie Babies, Bratz dolls, sports figures, and more. Mike runs the show 7 days a week. Call Mike, 585-889-9130. That's 585-889-9130. Folks, if you're not in Rochester and you're looking for that hard-to-buy memorabilia, call Mike or look him up on the web at heckjack@rochester.rr.com. Once again, folks, that's heckjack@rochester.rr.com. But if you are in Rochester, you can go down to Chile Avenue, that's 3240 in the Chile Paul Village.
It's McGinney Sports Pub, located at 2246 East River Road. A perfect blend of Irish charm and Italian cuisine. From Calabria favorites like calamari to chicken French to the new signature dish like the Steel City Deli.
The Rothless Burger.
Everything is delicious and prepared fresh for you. They offer a full lineup of your favorite beverages with drink specials daily, and don't forget their $5 Monster Bomb.
Ice cold beer.
All day, every day. With 2 floors of seating and 20 high-def televisions, there's not a bad seat in the house to catch every minute of the NFL action.
Watch what you want.
McGinney's is the official home of the Rochester Steelers fan club.
Steelers!
So come on down to McGinney Sports Pub, 2246 East River Road in Henrietta.
Welcome back, Steel Nation Live. Big Tiz.
And I'm Big O.
Hey guys, we're going to come to the part of the show where we're going to talk about some of the Steelers free agents that's going to be out there coming up that we think the Steelers should really take a good look at. And there's going to be a lot of them coming out for the Steelers this year.
Oh, yeah. And there's a lot.
Yeah.
Now, we don't have any, there's zero restricted free agents. We got 21 unrestricted free agents, which means they could test the waters out there. And we'll start off with the wide receiver core. Now, this is no surprise. Plaxico Burress, Jericho Crotchery, and Emmanuel Sanders. I mean, we got to keep one of those guys.
Yeah.
Because what do you think?
I think right now, I would like to keep Emmanuel Sanders, but for some reason I can't see it happening because as the stock's rising, I can see him asking for more money, and we almost lost him this year to New England.
Right, that's true.
Yeah, so right now the only ones that it looks possible to keep is Plaxico or either Jericho Crotchery. And Plaxico's really, if he can stay healthy enough, we can get him for less money and probably just use him.
The bare minimum,
Yeah,
I'm thinking.
as a receiver down near the goal line, which would be great for the Steelers because we need a tall receiver.
Right. And running backs, we have Jonathan Dwyer, Felix Jones, and LaRod Stephen Howling, who really didn't do anything for us this year. That was a great acquisition,
Right.
but it just didn't pan out. So I don't think any of these guys, in my books, are going to be signed because there's a big free agent market out there.
Right.
And there's running backs are plenty. So I really don't see, if anything, I think the Steelers might keep Dwyer.
Yeah.
If they do. Now, tight ends, David Johnson and Michael Palmer. See ya.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, Johnson out of the two did the best. Palmer, the problem with Palmer is he was an okay receiver, coming out of the back, coming off the line, but he couldn't block.
Couldn't block. And, I mean, you have to have some sense of blocking.
Yeah.
I mean, you either have blocking tight ends or catching tight ends.
Exactly.
Now, if he had the hands, I could see. But in David Johnson, like you said, he'd be somebody to look at. But don't forget we have David Paulson.
Right.
Heath Miller. He's still around. So I just don't see any use for Michael Palmer. Now, here's where it gets sticky.
Yeah.
Sticky. Offensive line, Fernando Velasco. We got this guy. What a great deal acquisition this guy was, center. Picked up right where Pouncey pretty much left off until he got hurt.
Well, the feeling is right now in Pittsburgh, they're thinking about leaving him at center and bringing back Pouncey as the guard, which they say Pouncey would somewhat rather play.
Yeah, right. And, just that's one thing about the offensive line with Pittsburgh because of the injuries. Everybody had to be versatile.
Right.
So you play left tackle one time, you might be right guard the next game, depending on the injuries. So, and Cody Wallace, who stepped up for Velasco, did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
But I think he's got some anger issues. And he's a guy don't get me wrong, he's the guy you want on your side. But he had a couple too many penalties that were unnecessary. So, but he did step up and did a valiant effort for when Velasco went down. And also Guy Wimper. That was one of those knee-jerk reaction signings. I don't think we need Cody Wallace or Wimper because with Pouncey coming back and also the free agent market, if we need to get somebody else in case Pouncey goes down again or whatnot, that's an avenue they can travel. Now, the defensive line, Ziggy Hood, Brett Kiesel, and Al Woods.
Well, I'd have to say Brett Kiesel's gone.
Pretty much, yeah.
He was a great Steeler for a long time, and his time is really nearing. Injuries and everything starting to affect him, so I believe he's gone. Ziggy Hood's a young guy, and he's starting to come to form what we've been looking for from him when we first drafted him. So he's finally getting there. So I think the Steelers should, try to keep him and work with him a little longer.
And Al Woods, he's great on special teams. He's coming along, but do we have time to wait for him? I mean, with the salary cap and with all the other people we have, as far as linebacker core, I don't think Al Woods is the guy.
Right.
I think Brett Kiesel is like a Kevin Green, the face of the Steeler defensive line. Got to a point in the career where it's time to move on, and he did have a good career with the Rams afterwards, Kevin Green. And I think he played, I could be wrong, don't quote me, I think he played for the 49ers.
I'm not sure. It might have been Carolina.
Carolina Panthers,
right.
There you go. It's, because they played the other day, and it's just got me confused. Linebacker, Steven Sylvester, Jamal Westerman, and Jason Worlds.
Right. Steven Sylvester, he's been showing some problems as well. And Worlds, he's not as bad. He's not bad as well. I mean, the Steelers.
He's up and coming.
Yeah. So the Steelers have a lot of things they got to do in the offseason, especially in the secondary part of it as well, with big contracts coming out of the secondary.
Right now, Jamal Westerman, if you can remember, he's the guy we signed after Woodley was placed on injury reserve when he wasn't going to finish out the rest of the season. He was just a relief valve. So unless this guy does anything impressive in the offseason or in training camp, I don't think this guy is back. Defensive back Will Allen and Ryan Clark.
That's gonna be a good one. I mean, Ryan Clark's. I'd hate to see him go because I still see that he still has something.
Oh yeah, veteran player, mentor, and Will Allen. He's also stepped it up. He took the place of your buddy Ike Taylor.
Yeah.
I mean, so it all depends on what they might be asking for and what Pittsburgh is willing to give them. And we're going to end this off on special teams. The guy who kicks the ball on fourth down. Some teams call them punters. We call him on our team the guy who kicked the ball because he would kick it.
Right.
Not far, but he would kick it. So he'd be a kicker. But we don't want to confuse anybody.
He could throw the ball, though.
He could throw the ball.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Better than he could kick it. I really don't think the Steelers signed a punter and a long snapper. I can't find him in my notes right now, but we do have somebody. And Greg Warren's been with the team, long snapper, for a very long time.
Yeah, he has.
So, I mean, is it time to move on? Is it time to keep him? But there you have it, folks. 21 Steeler free agents.
And I also believe that Polamalu might be up this year as well. If the fact of the Steelers are trying to mull whether they're going to still keep Polamalu or not. So that's going to be huge in this offseason.
He's got one more year on the contract. So, and he already said that this is a business. He doesn't know where he's gonna play when his career's or his contract's over with Pittsburgh, wherever God tells him to go. Who knows? But we'll see. It's not a game anymore. It's a business.
Right.
So it's moving on. This is you love this. You love this. This is during our shows when we like the gone but not forgotten.
Right.
This is the time of the year where we take all those stats that we talked about during the season and compare how they did at the end of the season. And Big Tiz, why don't you start us off with Mendenhall?
Well, Mendenhall, this guy, he played in 15 games for the Arizona Cardinals, 217 carries, 687 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 4 fumbles. Oops. I mean, those 4 fumbles were costly because a lot of them were near the goal lines, or he just, that was his problem when he's with Pittsburgh, giving up the ball, especially in Super Bowls. That hurt.
Now, Le'Veon Bell
played 13 games, 244 carries, 860 yards, 8 touchdowns, 1 fumble.
So, I think we did good on that.
Exactly.
And don't forget, folks, he missed 3 games.
Yeah.
And still almost had 1,000 yards. I think he plays those 3 games, he's got 1,000 yards.
And not a top-rated offensive line blocking for him either.
No, that's just guys in uniform. So, but the big stat, and I'm huge on this, the Mike Wallace, the Antonio Brown kind of deal. Mike Wallace played 16 games, only caught 73 balls for 930 yards and 5 TDs. Now, folks, you say, what? Those are some good stats, right? But not for what Miami's paying him and for what Pittsburgh would not pay him.
Right.
So we'll say it again, folks. 73 catches, 930 yards, 5 touchdowns in 16 games. Now, let's move over to the other side. Antonio Brown, MVP, Pittsburgh Steelers, 2013-14 season. 16 games played, 110 catches, which is 30-something more than Wallace, 1,499 yards receiving. Now, you couldn't toss the guy a ball 1 yard, give him even 1,500. I don't know. And 8 touchdowns. Folks, do the math at home. Okay? And we know at different places, warm weather, cold weather, you would think it would favor Mike Wallace. Now, Ben's not down in Miami throwing the football, but Tannehill is. And Tannehill's no slouch. He is a good quarterback. I wouldn't say great just yet because he's still green.
Right.
But, I mean, down there, he is somebody that you want throwing the football.
Exactly.
But obviously, it's not the Wallace. You know what? I should have got the stats of how many drop balls he had.
Well, there were quite a few drops that he had in some games that They were easy catches. Wallace is more of a deep threat. He's not a, go get it across the middle type of guy. So that's the difference between him and Antonio Brown. So that's why Antonio Brown's wearing the black and yellow.
And that's why he's MVP. Well,
Exactly.
Pittsburgh, I don't know about the NFL. But Big Tiz, the season is over, and we got the draft coming up pretty soon. And already I've hit the books, Big Tiz.
That's what I'm talking about.
Already I've possible future Steelers. Now, these are only guys, my 7 picks. All right? There's no crystal ball, there's no genie, there's nobody whispering in my ear. This is the players, and this is just before the combine. This is before any talk of any players out there. So these are the guys that stuck out to me the most and the positions that I felt or I feel that need the most attention. And obviously, we're going to need some help in the secondary.
Right.
So get your pencils, get your pens, get your paper, write these names down, Google them, YouTube them, look them on your computer and see that these guys that I'm thinking about are what we need.
Right.
Now, let me reiterate that this is before the combine. This is before anybody says anything. This is just my personal, who I looked at and I see that the Pittsburgh could use. Okay, with that being said, my first round pick would be Justin Gilbert, cornerback, Oklahoma State, 6 foot, 201 pounds. He's got great size, tremendous athlete, great at man-to-man coverage, and he's a reliable tackler. Now, the word on the street is they gave this guy, said, here, there you go. You do your thing, almost like Darrelle Revis. So he's Gilbert's Island, okay?
Wow.
He did what he wanted, not what he wanted to do, but whatever he did to help the team, man-to-man coverage, bumper, whatever it was, this guy excelled in it. He's got the size, he's got the strength. Number 1 pick. Number 2, still in the secondary, Deion Buchanan from Washington State, safety. Now, 6'1", 215. Now, this guy is bigger and stronger than Palomalu. And also, he plays with no regard, just like we all know Shamarko Thomas, who is hurt. Mm-hmm. But this guy can cover, and also he's a great open field tackler. And the way the defense has been playing of late, we're going to need guys like that.
Exactly.
So, my number 3 pick, now we get up with the defensive line. Defensive end, defensive tackle from Arkansas State, Ryan Carruthers. 6'1", okay, 340 pounds. This guy is fast. He's got superb leverage and superb power. Almost like James Harrison.
Exactly.
Low center of gravity. This guy is strong. No problems with double teams. And this would allow McClendon, who's a nose tackle, to move over defensive end if Kiesel leaves for free agency. Now, offensive tackle, we need help at the offensive tackle. Juwan James, offensive tackle, Tennessee. 6'6", 285 pounds. What makes this guy special, he's got quick feet, and he's very flexible, okay? He's an experienced starter and a solid all the way around. All right, speed things up here. Number 5, running back, DeAnthony Thomas. Why a running back from Oregon? Well, this kid averaged 10.8 yards per carry, hauled in 46 passes for 605 yards, which proves that he can catch out of the backfield, and he's a part-time kick and punt returner. And if, God forbid, Le'Veon Bell goes down again, this is his double. This guy will fill in. He could do it all. Oregon, they have so many running backs in Oregon that this guy gets missed. So, number 6, Prince Shembo, linebacker, Notre Dame. We all know about this guy. 6'2", 258. Now, if the Steelers can't restructure Ridley's contract this year, this guy would be a perfect fit. Perfect for the 3-4, natural 3-4 defender. Everything you want in a pass rushing linebacker. And here's my surprise selection, 7th round quarterback out of Northwestern. I did say quarterback, folks. It wasn't misspoken. Quarterback, Northwestern. Why? Because this is our Wes Welker. We need a slot receiver. We don't have Hines Ward anymore. We don't have Randall L. And all these 2 guys came out of college quarterbacks. Now, this kid could run the ball like a running back. He could throw the ball because obviously he's a quarterback. And he also can catch the ball. So this is our Wes Welker. This is the guy we need. He's rough. He's tough. And we all know Pittsburgh only suits up 2 quarterbacks. This guy would be perfect for Wildcat or any new offense that Pittsburgh wants to bring out. This guy. Remember, Kane Coulter, quarterback, Northwestern. My 7 picks.
Hey, guys, you know what? It's been an epic season for the Steelers this year, and we are glad that you allowed us to come into your homes and bring it to you via the internet, watching us, or listening to us on TalkShoe.com. Big Tiz and from Big O, we appreciate you guys, and we hope you guys have a great offseason this year. And always remember, black and yellow is where it's at.
That's right. Draft is May 8th, I believe. Subject to change. Who knows? I'm Big O, Steel Nation Live, Rochester, New York, for the Black and Gold Pittsburgh Steelers. Thank you so much for bringing us into your home, and hopefully we'll continue to do this in the future. We love you guys.
The future, and we're the name of the future. We're the name of the future, and we're the name of the future. Hey, yeah. Shout out to Big Tiz, man, and Big O. It's still a nation, man. Yeah. Big Tiz, Big O. You know what it is, man. It's still a nation, man. Big O. Yeah. Big O. Every night on Monday night, man. 7 to 8 on Monday night. Big O. Big Tiz, and this is Stump, and this is Still a Nation. Big Tiz, Big O, it's Big Tiz, Big O, Still a Nation. Big Tiz, Big O, Big Tiz, Big O, it's Still a Nation, man. Yeah, this is Stump, Big O. Yeah, I had to say it was a Stump, man. Cause it is a Stump, man. Yeah, Big Tiz, Big O. Yeah. The name of the future, and we're the name of the future. We're the name of the future, and we're the name of the future. Hey, yeah. Shout out to Big Tiz, man, and Big O. It's still a nation, man. Yeah. Big Tiz, Big O. You know what it is, man. Still a nation, man. Big O. Yeah.